Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Dev Diary. Now, at the time of this recording, GameMaker has finally released an update, and a test to make sure everything actually worked would end up turning into an accidental prototype for a game about a monkey collecting falling bananas. So, let's get to the code. First, let's check out the banana and other things falling from the sky. Pretty basic setup, and also utilizes a pooling system. So next, let's look at the player code. Again, nothing too out of the ordinary thus far. A control scheme and hurt system as expected. And moving on to our step event, however, and things get more interesting. A vertical movement is based on a 16x16 grid. However, horizontal movement is a bit more complicated. Based on the player's X scale value and position will determine how far the player moves in their desired direction, either 16 or 32 pixels. Now, this allows the player to not only switch between the sides of any given tree that they're currently climbing, but also jump from one tree to another. In other words, grid-like movement that also allows the player to skip cells based on certain circumstances. And again, the player uses our typical hurt system with an added flicker effect to visually convey the state in the draw event. Now, when it came to collisions with the falling items, a switch was needed. This switch would determine the outcomes of each type of falling item. The banana would add to the player's score, the coconut would hurt the player, triggering the hurt system, and the branch acts as an instant game over, resetting the room. And that about does it for the player code, so let's move on to the HUD/controller for the rest of the game. The HUD keeps track of the player's health and score, the spawning of falling objects, and a cloud effect, which just so happens to be our first function. The add cloud function adds an array of data to a list. That list is then used to draw clouds to the level, and much like falling items is pushed down vertically over time. The next two functions are used to manage our falling objects pool, activating and deactivating objects as needed. The final function is our ticker, which controls anything timer-based. For example, spawning a number of falling objects every 60 frames. The clouds are also pushed down the level through the ticker. Once they're out of view of the play area, their entry is deleted from the clouds list, and 1 to 2 are created at the top of the level in its place. Our falling objects pool is then created, some clouds are drawn, and the player is spawned. Now, the draw code is nothing special. The player's score and health are drawn to the top left of the screen, and the clouds are drawn behind all instances. The end result is a game about a monkey dodging coconuts and branches to gather as many bananas as possible. And for anyone curious on what kickstarted this whole build, was a test of timing. The goal was to use as few timer variables as possible. That didn't end up working out like I wanted, but at least I managed to finish the project. Another fun bit was the creation of the clouds. Because of the way that the clouds are set to spawn, if the player survives long enough, the screen slowly transitions from the blue gradient to almost pure white. If I'd had more time, this would have extended to space. But alas, this took me roughly an hour and a half to complete, mostly due to fiddling with the math. And the good news is GameMaker seems to be back to normal for me, so yes, finally we can return to our regularly scheduled programming. So with that said, brings us to the end of our detours and today's Dev Diary. Remember, if you enjoyed today's entry, consider leaving a like. Be sure to also subscribe and hit that bell if you haven't already. And let me know when's the last time you just sat down and whipped something up. Was it part of a game jam or something spontaneous like today's project? Leave your thoughts, opinions, or stories in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.